Just a few minutes ago, there was a warning announcement by the Zionist military calling for the evacuation, the complete evacuation of the Dahi, the southern suburb of Beirut, where more than 500,000 people live, until Jewish colonies, Jewish neighborhoods inside occupied Palestine, inside the world, do not face the same fate as our neighborhoods here. These Jewish supremacists will continue to conduct these campaigns of terrorism against our innocent civilians. Hey everybody, this is Laith Marouf from Free Palestine TV, and we are at the main highway in the Beqaa Valley from Beirut to Baalbek. Today is the 5th of March 2026. The 6th day of the war on Iran has begun, and we are here to investigate the attacks on the Beqaa Valley over the last 2 days since Hezbollah entered the battle against the Zionists and the imperialists in the region. We're standing beside Al-Qard al-Hasan branch, which is the good loan, a co-op bank that the Hezbollah provides in Lebanon. It is one of the only co-op banks in the country where a lot of the working class from all the various sects actually put their money so they can not be looted by the imperialist bank, as has happened in 2018. This was one of multiple Qard al-Hasan branches that were attacked. 6 of them were attacked in the first day of the war since Hezbollah has joined it. And we are here with our guest, recurring guest, Steve Sweeney. Steve, of course, is the war correspondent for RT in the south of Lebanon. Steve, it seems like a lot of the international kind of cockroach class of journalists that only come when there is destruction just showed up today. These are faces we haven't seen for
about 15 months
since that 66-day war. Before we talk about actually the destruction that we're seeing, what can we say about all these, quote-unquote journalists?
Well, I don't know. We've discussed this kind of thing a lot, and I think that the state of journalism in well, not just here but across the world, Western journalism in particular, is now it's at such a low point. I don't think we've ever seen such a low point in the history of journalism, really, and it's where things become, for example, war becomes entertainment. And they like to come to places like this because they can stand up in front of a destroyed or damaged building and make it all about them. It's the hero shot, the vanity shot, this look at me, and we've seen that with the, I think with the advent of social media more so as well. People think they're doing journalism when they stand in front of a building and say, look, I'm here, this building is being destroyed. And, that's not journalism, that's tourism. Right?
Oh, yeah.
We need to be very clear about that. But I think the fact that they've abandoned the field since in that 15 months is, the people are talking about Israel launching a war on Lebanon. Well, that war never ended, actually, from the time of the ceasefire until now. That 15 months, the latest figures we know, more than 15,000 violations of the ceasefire by Israel. That's according to the United Nations. So those
over
figures,
500 martyrs also
exactly.
in that period,
So
and since the beginnings of the full-scale war that we saw over the last 2 days, it's over 50 other martyrs. But much of these journalists do not speak Arabic, do not have any education about the history or the geography of the region.
Exactly right.
They're just parachuted, depending, and it seems like the top priority is their looks on camera.
Exactly right. And I think that's what journalism has become now for a lot of organisations. And you've seen it when you read their reports or you watch their films. You can see the complete gaps. Well, you can see also that they're acting as propaganda outfits for the Israelis. That's certainly what we've seen. And now they're kind of lining up, they're queuing up to enter the country, to report on what's happening in the south, to report what's happening in Lebanon, but really they're lining up to attack Hezbollah. That's their main goal for coming in, is portraying Hezbollah as the aggressor, Hezbollah as the enemy, Hezbollah as a force that needs to be vanquished from this territory. And we're seeing that reflected in the media, we're seeing it reflected in the government. Of course, we're now Salam's I can only call outrageous decision to ban Hezbollah's military wing and to ban them from carrying out military operations is essentially to disarm the entire resistance and hand the country over to the Zionists. That's all that
I like to call him Nawaf Shalom. Obviously, there is, of course, all the secret records of both the British and the Germans that came out over the last few years from the intelligence agencies that showed how the British and the Americans wanted Nawaf Salam from the 70s to be their man, even working with Bashir Jmail. This is all in the documents. This is not even to mention his grandfather's sale of the Beqaa Valley, lands that he faked ownership by bribing Ottoman record holders. We can see the destruction. This is crazy. This is like a bank machine.
That's a bank telling machine. I think this one here. I mean, you can really see that this was a very powerful munition that was used. You can see the damage to the buildings either side. But this building has been entirely destroyed. Now, as we understand, this building was one of those that was targeted during the 66-day war. And of course, you remember that there was a wave of strikes on Al-Qard, al-Hasan during that period. This building had rebuilt itself in the last 15 months or so, and again it found itself targeted earlier this week as part of these. I think 18 evacuation orders were issued for Al-Qard al-Hasan buildings. I don't know if they struck all of them.
They struck six out of those 18 that they threatened. Obviously the other ones that didn't get threatened are evacuated anyways.
Of course, yeah.
We saw, you remember in that 66-day war where they targeted the main headquarters of Al-Qard al-Hasan, and they targeted the hospital in the Dahi, claiming the gold of Al-Qard al-Hasan is under it, and the hospital had to open. Remember that? We went together, I think.
I remember doing a tour of the hospital. We went everywhere, every nook, every cranny, the basements, and then when they said, well, you looked in the wrong place, I remember we went back the next day. We went to the places where they said, no, this is the places they didn't check. They handily gave us a map to show us where we'd gone wrong. Again, no gold, no cash. So of course, this is part of this narrative that Al-Qard al-Hasan is the financial backbone of Hezbollah. That Hezbollah is stealing the people's money to fund its war against Israel. That's the kind of narrative that they want to promote with this. But of course, Al-Qard al-Hasan, as even liberal human rights organisations have said, I think Amnesty being one of them, have said that these are public financial institutions. Yes, they might be affiliated or associated with Hezbollah, but these are the financial institutions that are used by ordinary Lebanese people for loans. They pay for weddings or a new car or a new bike or whatever, and they use Al-Qard al-Hasan for that, and also to store gold and cash, because we know that the Lebanese banking system is not reliable or trustworthy.
And we saw some of the heads of those banks in the Epstein files.
Of course, yeah.
And we know they were plotting and worked on to crash the Lebanese economy and steal the depositors' monies in order to force the country to bow down to the Zionists. This is. We look at how the international media is going to cover this story. When you mention, they're going to say this is Hezbollah's money, that this is Hezbollah stealing money from the people. I know many Christian and Druze, Lebanese people that have put their money in this bank because it is actually the safest bank for their money, and the one that doesn't take interest on their loans. So it is a working class backbone for the working class in Lebanon. And these journalists, for the most part, will be regurgitating the Zionist talking points with no investigative value or anything like this. Okay, so we're gonna try to go around and see other locations that were hit in the Beqaa Valley, and we'll discuss the fallout of Hezbollah's entering the battle and its performance over the last 24 hours. There's been 18 announcements since yesterday's speech by Secretary General Naim Qasim. So many amazing operations. We'll talk about them just in a minute.
إسرائيل هذه هي خطر وجودي علينا وعلى شعبنا ووطننا وعلى المنطقة بأسرها.
So we're outside the Ali Alian Medical Center and the Dar al-Amal Hospital, University Hospital here. Behind us is a memorial for martyr Ali Rukn Allam, the general manager of this hospitals, that was assassinated last year in his home with his family. In fact, we were here with Craig Moray when he was assassinated that day. And we were shocked, of course, that they went and hunted him in his home. But this has become a norm for the Zionists in Gaza and everywhere.
Well, it's become a norm, certainly for the Zionists even in Baalbek. We know that over the past few days, a number of paramedics were targeted as they were trying to issue emergency medical procedures after a strike, and they were then also targeted and killed. Not the first time it's happened in Baalbek. We were also in RT crew. The RT crew was filming when the emergency services came under effect. The civil defence came under attack from a drone strike. They've been out actually attending bombings and trying to rescue people from the rubble. And as they returned to their base, that was when the Zionists struck. And I forget the actual death toll now, but we're talking like 12 or 13 people in a clearly identified emergency centre, a medical centre. And a lot of these people, you have to remember, certainly for the civil defence, and at that time were volunteers. We spoke to the sons of one of the people that was martyred in that attack, and he said that they'd been months and months and months without being paid because of the financial situation here. But of course they carried on volunteering to do their job. So these people are heroes. You know, these people are working, to not only to save lives, but also at great risk to theirs. Now, I remember during the 66-day war, there was a period of around, I think it was about a week to 10 days, when the Zionists were hunting down displaced people. If you might remember that, Netanyahu described the Shia as the enemy within, and that we will strike you wherever you go. And of course, people were in, what they thought were safe places.
Yeah, there were some Christian villages, Druze villages in the mountain that
exactly. But I remember we went to one of the sites and we spoke to the paramedics again there on the scene, and they said that what they'd done was they'd taken the logo off the top of their vehicle and off the front of their vehicles. Now, in normal times, that you would see that this was an emergency vehicle and it would be safe under the rules of war. There are some, believe it or not, but under the Geneva Conventions, it's illegal to target medical workers. But of course, Israel says, as we know, well, they're Hezbollah. That's,
just in the last few days, at least 3 hospitals in Iran were deliberately targeted, including a ward for children, for fertility clinic, and the doctors in Gaza. It's 2.5 years that they haven't been paid. Them and the other medical staff, and they are still doing their work. And of course, there is Dr. Abu Sufia and other doctors that are being tortured to death in the gulags of the Zionist entity. We're going to go inside because there are survivors from an attack on a residential building in Baalbek. We'll talk to hopefully some of their relatives and take a look at the 9-year-old survivor girl that is there. She's the only survivor of her family. We are at the pediatric intensive care unit of Dar al-Amal Hospital, just outside Baalbek city. And we are going to be trying to take a look at one of the survivors of the massacre that happened yesterday in Baalbek city when a residential building was targeted. The survivor is a 9-year-old child. Her name is Zahra Asaf. Part of her family, her 2 grandparents, her mother, and her brother, who is 11 years old, are martyred. The 11 years old child, her brother, they couldn't find his body in the rubble. And this was part of the 9 martyrs in the building and 20 somewhat injured in all of those apartments that were affected by that indiscriminate attack by the Zionists. Of course, this is now a norm, 2.5 years of continued attacks on unarmed civilians, on children, on women, on hospitals, on schools, on journalists by the Zionists. You are the cousin of the child survivor of the massacre. Tell us about how many people from the family were injured and martyred.
There's 4 people are dead, and there's 2 in hospital. We don't know about the 4th one, if he's lived or not. We're searching for him, but
Is the brother?
Yeah, we are not related for anything. We are having this stuff. We're having it. It's very hard for us. They are kids. What do you want from kids, right? 8 years old and 11 years old.
We are now at the funeral procession for the victims of this attack on the residential building. We were here just a week ago, me and you, for another funeral. It's become now a normal thing, but what has not been broken is resistance. Since the operations of Hezbollah began in 2 days, a huge amount of attacks on the Zionist colony. Yesterday there was huge successes in the south of Lebanon while the Zionists were attempting to enter. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, yes, we saw the Zionists trying to make this attempted ground invasion, these incursions. Now, we should say that this is not anything particularly new in a way, because people are talking about this as though the Israelis have just suddenly launched a ground invasion, when in fact they've occupied these 5 military posts illegally inside Lebanese sovereign territory. They've made frequent incursions, but the difference is now that they're facing the resistance, and Hezbollah has now fully entered the war, as we know. These strikes into Israel, striking the port city of Haifa, which triggered the Israeli response, I think, that we could say. But we have to remember that Hezbollah, for 15 months, has been very, very patient and waiting before it's finally made its move. I think enough is enough, and they had information that Israel was planning this ground invasion that was due to take place, we think, months and months in the planning, mobilising military hardware to the border, mobilising 100,000 reservists. So they've planned this well in advance, and what they found is, however, and I think we've heard from some Israeli military chiefs who said that they were surprised at Hezbollah's response. Of course, during that 15 months, the Israelis have been believed that they've taken out the elite Radwan force, for example. They believe that they've taken out senior figures and senior commanders within the organisation and essentially decapitated it.
We saw in the speech yesterday of Sheikh Naim al-Qasim, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, he said that, of course, they had intercepted information that,
yes,
and this is admitted by the cabinet of the Zionist military, that they were preparing to attack Lebanon. And also he said in his speech that there was negotiators that came to Hezbollah just before the war on Iran began and told them, hey, would you intervene if Iran is attacked? And the Hezb representatives said that, why are you asking? And they responded also by asking, what about after the war on Iran? would Israel be attacking Hezbollah? Because the negotiators promised that Lebanon will not be attacked during a war in Iran if you don't intervene. But the negotiators said, yes, of course, Lebanon will be attacked after Iran is destroyed, basically.
Of course, I think the thing to note is that Israel can't fight a ground war. We know that. We know that from 2000. We know it from 2006. We know it even from 2024. Every time they tried to get a toehold into southern Lebanon, they were defeated. They were pushed back like babies. You know, we call them the diaper army because they were shitting themselves constantly. But you know, I think this is the lesson of 2024, for want of a better word. They had their arses handed to them on a plate, and we can see the similar pattern now.
That battle of Khiyam last night,
exactly,
if you can tell the viewers about it.
Well, the Battle of Khiyam, this is one of the areas that there was a central fighting zone, a war zone back in 2024. This is where the Zionists were entering and trying to push in. They have one of their bases nearby, so they can mobilise a reasonable number of troops from Israel to make that entry. But they were pushed right back out of Khiyam. We've seen Merkava tanks up in flames as well. This is something that they were really not expecting, but it's happened to them again. They've been pushed out. Intense battle, and they were surprised at the strength of the Hezbollah fight and at the strength of the resistance. I think many people have been actually taken by surprise.
Yeah, so that battle, they had to withdraw. Obviously, the processions are beginning.
Yeah.
Hayhat min al-dhillah. Never will you see humiliation from us. This is the Bekaa Hussein. We heed your call, O Hussein. These chants are really what's putting fear in the hearts of the Zionists and the imperialists, to see a nation, peoples here in the region from Lebanon all the way to Iran responding after every genocidal action by the West by saying hayhata minna dhilla and labbaika ya Hussein. This is, I don't think the Zionists have seen an enemy like this. This is the location of the Israeli air raid. They fired one GBU at 2:30 a.m. last night, the night before, I mean the day before. And as you can see, all the residential block here is damaged, plus the targeted building, 3-4th-floor building, is leveled to the ground. They had to, the rescue crews, remove a lot of the rubble of the building to find the survivors and the bodies of the martyrs. Up until now, as we said, they haven't been able to find the remains of the 11-year-old child. But we've experienced over the last 2.5 years the Zionists using incendiary devices that disappear, evaporate the bodies of their victims. We've also seen in other situations bodies of children being thrown kilometers away into the roofs of other buildings, as happened in Palestine and here in Lebanon during the 66-day war. So this is the norm now. For the last 2.5 years, this is what Western civilization entails. Just a few minutes ago, there was a warning announcement by the Zionist military calling for the evacuation, the complete evacuation of the Dahi, the southern suburb of Beirut, where more than 500,000 people live. This is a campaign of terrorism. Of course, the Zionists do not have the explosive capacity to take out every building in the Dahi or all at once. It will take them months to do such a thing. They don't even have enough aircraft to conduct such a raid. So we can understand that this is just a pure campaign of terrorism. And as we saw, this was done to Tehran yesterday, when huge swaths of Tehran were ordered evacuated, and millions of Iranians had to leave the city to go to the suburbs and the villages around to guarantee their safety. Until Jewish colonies, Jewish neighborhoods inside occupied Palestine, inside the world, do not face the same fate as our neighborhoods here, these Jewish supremacists will continue to conduct these campaigns of terrorism against our innocent civilians. So hopefully, if the leaders in Iran are hearing that they can use their biggest missiles on the heart of Tel Aviv, on the heart of Haifa, on the heart of Beersheba, and to force these colonists into the outdoors to face the same fate that we are facing here. Until then, Jews around the world will not be deterred and will continue to commit these crimes. I'm Laith Marouf. Behind the camera is Hadi. We had with us today our colleague Steve Sweeney from Russia Today, and Ali Sbeiti, who had to rush back to Beirut because their families live in the Dahiya and they have to make sure that they are safe. This is why Steve and Ali are not with me in this closing. I ask you all to press the subscribe button on whatever social media platform you're watching this on, and to go to our website, freepalestine.video, to donate so we can continue bringing you this content. Until we see you next time, we wish you all a world free of Zionism and imperialism.